So there has been some chit, and dare I say chat, around Bridgehead and around it being broken. I think that is partially alarmist, but also partially correct. I think that it is fast becoming obvious that Bridgehead, between right now in the index, obviously things could change with the codex, we are seeing right now Guard Bridgehead be the best way of playing Guard. Like I said, could change with the codex, but I think it'll stay pretty fucking popular. I think it's pretty fucking popular. So taking a look at the results from this weekend alone, look at the Astra Militarum stat. So as a faction, we only had a 48% win rate. We had 5 players go 4-1 or better. So that does include people that went 5-0 but didn't win the tournament because maybe they lost on tiebreaker. Okay, that's relevant because we'll go through the different tournaments, right? And we actually won one event. There were 39 Guard players this weekend. 24 of them ran Bridgehead. Wow. So the newer, niche detachment had more players than your standard take all comers Guard detachment. I always say, judge Guard on the player numbers. That's how you tell if our faction is doing well or not. Because the win rate can be all over the place a little bit. Because Guard can be a little tricky to get your hands on at first. It's tricky to understand it. So not only am I looking at the player numbers and seeing 39 decent showing on a quieter weekend, only 680 people overall. But I'm then seeing that by a large margin, Bridgehead was the more popular detachment. Okay. Then I look and see that Bridgehead actually had all of the good stats. So 53% plus they had the 5 people that went undefeated or only lost one game, and they had the tournament win. Let's look at those tournaments in detail. So Bridgehead went 6-0 and came second at Beachhead Brawl, which was a super major. 196 players, 6 rounds. So it didn't win the tournament, but it came. We then had Bridgehead going 5-0 and coming second at a major in Canada. So again, Bridgehead in the 2 largest tournaments of the weekend went undefeated. Then the third largest event, Bridgehead went 6-1 at the Atlanta. I say this is the major, 7 rounds, 74 people. So 3 super major events, a major and super major events. Guard came second at all 3 of them. Podiumed at all 3 of them. 2 of them went undefeated. So GT winning, super major, and major podiuming. Oh, that's spicy. I'm not making any excuses. Oh shit, man. That's spicy. It's the ability to essentially ambush. So it can be screened out. It can be screened out. But essentially, the Guard player has the ability to do multiple nukes. So you're gonna have 2 or 3 big gigablobs of scions. That's gonna happen. The one counter to Bridgehead is good screening. But let's look at the meta. We are in predominantly a hyper elite infantry meta. I think that the meta has shifted from vehicles and monsters to hyper elite infantry. It seems to be. I can't remember the last time I faced a mech list. Because of this, they don't have as much screening as they should. Because maybe the screening is, I infiltrated a couple of scout units up at you. Scouts or the equivalent thereof. Maybe you've got a couple of Sisters of Silence units. Custodian is very popular right now. People are taking all of the tooth, but none of the tail in a Guard army. In a not a Guard army, generally in their army list. Like, I'll look around at Grey Knights and I'll see 5 or 6 Dread Knights, but fuck all infantry. I look around at Custodian's list, and what do I see? Dreadnoughts for days. At best, I might see a couple of units of Silence. Hyper elite armies with fuck all screening. And so the problem is that Bridgehead will come down and it will delete you. And if you put the minimum screening in your list, then Bridgehead will just wait one turn. We'll just wait till turn 2. And turn 1 will get rid of your screening. Because at first, I think people were running Bridgehead with maximum deep strike. They were like, I will put 1,000 points of silence in reserve. I don't think that's the way to do it. And I think that's what a lot of people have learned. I think the temptation is to go full send on the silence, but actually you probably want to have 2 or 3 nukes. 2 or 3 deep strike nukes. And the rest of it is probably stuff that's still going to benefit from the detachment. A few units in transports on the board, stuff like that. But yeah, I think the key to actually Bridgehead being super successful is the fact that people, the Bridgehead players, are learning how to deliver the nuke. That's what it is. They're learning how to deliver it. And what's the problem is that if you don't have enough screening against Bridgehead, it will kill you. It will flatten you. Because it kind of works. It kind of works a little bit how Eldar works. I know, I just compared Guard to Eldar. Lambast me. One of the things that a lot of people fail to understand with Eldar is that they don't need good durability when everyone is dead. So a good Eldar player, and I remember my brother doing this to me with Dark Eldar back in the days. So the thing about Eldar is that what you should do is you should really lean into their speed. So you go, I'm basically going to have like a huge amount of my army on one side of the board. It might not even look like it's on that one side at first, but with my maneuverability, I can just move everything over to one side of the board. And then I just delete that isolated part of my opponent's army. And then, oh, but I'm so fragile. Oh, but there's no clapback because everyone on this side of the board is dead and it's really dense L-shaped fucking ruins. So I'm most safe from clapback. And then they move over to another part of the board and they delete that bit. And they move over to the third part of the board and delete that bit. Basically, Eldar win by picking you apart in detail. Well, Bridgehead is very similar. Because Bridgehead, what we're going to do is we're going to drop a nuke down here, maybe 2 nukes, and just delete that, just carve that away. And oh look, you're an elite army. So you've got fuck all redundancy. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to spend a CP and pick one of those nukes up. And then I'm going to deploy another 2 nukes down over here. I'm going to carve that away. Because you've not got enough screening. And if you've got no screening, I'm doing it turn 1. If you've got a little bit of screening, I'm going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to do it turn 2 and turn 3. And then because I can pop up and down, I'm probably also going to do it turn 4, turn 5. And so it's just this fact. And if there's no screening, I mean, I have seen it and I have done it. I have gone with a Bridgehead and I've gone full send turn 2. Like I'm talking, I put 45 scions and I ran everyone out. Got everyone out of the transports. I went full send turn 2 because my opponent had marched out into the middle of the board with his fucking durable elite ass infantry, and I just went bang, 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 done. I've seen it. I've done it. That's the thing with Bridgehead, and so Bridgehead is quite anti-meta at the moment. The other thing with Bridgehead that is kind of fucking with people a smidge is the fact that if it punishes you for not having redundancy, whilst at the same time, it's got a shitload of redundancy. Because it's essentially pure infantry with a bit of artillery support. That's really what it is. So it's like, oh, okay. So there's like 130 bastards. There's 100 to there's like 100 bastards to 150 bastards in here, depending on how hard you've gone on like mech and artillery and stuff. It's got mass. So it's got force concentration, and it's got mass, and it's got maneuverability. It is super fucking fragile, but it has indirect durability. And the problem is that it's kind of somewhat abusing. It's abusing the meta. It's abusing the current way people like to play. And the big thing is that it's also kind of abusing the I go, you go thing. Because it can deliver the full one bop. It can one bop you in one turn if it wants to. Whereas if this was a game like Bolt Action, this kind of playstyle wouldn't work because you'd send in one nuke and then someone else would, or one page rules, I'll mention it, and someone would come back at you. You'd do your one nuke and then someone would just counter it and kill it. There's clapback on that flank. So yeah, I think that's that's kind of the trifecta. It's able to deliver a hell of a punch. It's able to avoid the clapback, and it's able to just force concentrate, and it's got all the benefits of force concentration and combat width. And also, it's not even that complicated. It's got +1 to wound, boys. It's got 4 rerolls to hit, sustained hits, +1 to wound on 15 scions, armed to the fucking gills with plasma melter. There's all, I've tried to give you the complicated version, but you can just fucking break it down. It is gonna, that is a fist going into your anus. That's what it is. It's just very, very powerful. But tactically wise, meta wise, fundamentally, it just slaps. Literally, it doesn't slap, it slaps, and it slaps the shit out of your opponent. I think it's going to get nerfed. But what I would like to see, oh, and by the way, in its current configuration, is also quite good at overwatching people. Because if your opponent moves on, let's say you slap the shit out of a side, and then your opponent moves on to an objective to try and make sure they're getting primary next turn, you then overwatch them. You'll probably blast away whatever you want, because you're going to be hitting on 6s with sustained hits, with full rerolls, with 1,000,000 plasma melt shots again. So it has ways of keeping the enemy back and fucking with their primary game, and also punishing them for trying to come over and deal with it. Now, it's not unbeatable. I think it does take a high degree of skill. I think I'd probably need half a dozen practice games, a couple of practice RTTs before I went to a GT and had a chance of probably going 4-1 or winning it. I'd probably need a dozen practice games before I went down to a local GT and could go all the way. So yeah, I think it does require skill. Once you got the reps in, you are flying. Or should I say, you're not flying, you're falling with style. Yeah. I think it's arguably broken in the current meta. I think there's 2 ways Bridgehead gets screwed over. And it comes around, I think there's one way really. It comes down to the meta taking into account a lot more screening. Whether that's in the form of mechanized, or that's just in the form of just having a lot more screening. I don't agree. Some people would say, oh, well, I think, it would struggle into hordes. I think if you put Bridgehead into a green tide, it just deletes it in one turn. Yeah, easy peasy. That kind of firepower is not going to struggle dealing with orcs. Dealing with any horde. If I took 261 Tyranids into Bridgehead, I would expect to be tabled in probably by turn 3. Yeah, easy peasy, man. I mean, I think in one turn it would pick up 120 Hormagaunts, and then I'm getting into a shootout with fucking Scions with Termagants. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't think horde is the answer to it, even remotely. I think what maybe screws it is cheap transports, because what you kind of want to do is have you if I was playing mechanized versus Bridgehead, my general plan / theory would be to have probably quite a traditional mechanized list, because what I'd want to do is basically push my scouting transports up, put them, stage them up nicely behind as much line sight blocking as I can. My thinking is that the infantry then get out, and I can have some infantry that can shoot back, but also then my tanks can come round from where they've been hiding and do some shooting there as well. I think the thing is that, because if they're trying to go for like a 1, because it often comes down to turn 2, turn 3 with Bridgehead. It's like turn 2, turn 3. A lot can happen on turn 1, but it's often a bit of turn 2, turn 3. The two. It's not just the one bop; it's the left and right, the left and right hook. And I think the advantage of mech is that they have to spend 2 turns clearing the screen, and I think that's how you make Bridgehead at the very least work for it. You've got to make them spend 2 turns clearing the screen, not 1 turn, because they can only pick up 1 unit at a time. So now now that's all good in theory. I guess what the problem in reality is that transports aren't super duper cheap. It's like 70 points for a transport. You see, this is where it's going to sound crazy, but hear me out. This is where Sisters of Battle should be a really hard counter to Bridgehead. Because if I ruled the world and Sisters of Battle were much hoardier than they are now. This is where having like mass mech sisters would be super good, because they could have big cheap squads inside transports. So they're not, the transports are cheap and the squads inside aren't breaking the bank. The Bridgehead breaks over the transports, and then the sisters have actually got enough firepower to be able to clear away what's dropped. Because the problem with my mech guard counter is that maybe the 10 guys getting out are 10 guardsmen. Yeah, something like that. But that's where I think sometimes I don't appreciate, but I think a lot of people don't appreciate. The meta is a bit of an ecosystem, and if you remove something from the ecosystem, it can have a ripple effect. So, if sisters were a prevalent faction with cheap transports that could have pretty viable infantry jump out, I think Bridgehead would be less prevalent, because I think, or if there were more factions like that, I think Bridgehead would be less prevalent, because the idea that, it can go 4-1, but at some point it's going to counter. Its counter would keep it back and keep its popularity down. At the moment, I just don't think there's many factions like that fundamentally exist. So that's kind of my hot takes on Bridgehead. I think that it's +1 to wound on big blobs of many special weapon dudes. It is obviously very powerful, and that on a fundamental level, that's as complicated as it needs to be. I think there's also deeper layers to it, like what is the current meta, hyper elite infantry, with very little screening. But I think also there's another layer to it of what is the current ecosystem, and are there any factions out there which have got the cheap mech factor, and I'm just not seeing it. I can't think outside of guard. I can't think of a cheap mech factor. And I don't even know if you can say guard is that cheap now, because 150 points is not that cheap. The only thing I can think of is I think that semi-horde armies have essentially been removed from the ecosystem. I think that there's no semi-horde armies out there which have that combination of reasonably cheap with decent with decent capabilities. I think everyone's gone far too elite. I think the community has demanded this. So we've kind of got, a lot of people have kind of got what they wish for. And now I think we're starting to see maybe that the ecosystem is suffering from it. Mad Larkin, these fools know nothing of Horde. Recon gang, rise up. So this is actually a really, really good point, Mad Larkin. I said before that Bridgehead could delete Horde. I believe there is one exception, and that is Recon. So Recon kind of has the tools to deal with new Bridgehead, not old Bridgehead, new Bridgehead. And I think what this comes down to is re-rolling the hits on Scion drop blobs, going to re-roll into wound. And I think what we're going to see is Courageous Diversion be a kryptonite. Courageous Diversion plus Scramble Field. I think that locks out Bridgehead. I think it locks it out, because I can take a 25-man Scion squad, and I can do this more than once. I can do this not Scion squad, Catachan squad. I take a 25-man Catachan squad, and I can do this every turn that I need to, and I can, especially turn 1, and I can scout move 6, move 9, and then advance to the D6. I can yeet that forward. One long conga line with just 3, with a little triangle of 3 at each end. All the officers on one end, I would suggest, so that it can go down that line. And I can go, bear in mind, I'll have, each time I do this, I will get 2d6 on a 4+, a chance to farm these CP. So I can only farm 1. I get essentially 4 dice to try this. I can go Courageous Diversion, Scrambler Field. And that whole line, no deep strike within 12 inches. Anything that tries to clear that screen, -1 to hit, 6 up, feel no pain on that unit. plus everything behind it -1 to hit. So ironically, I think the thing that beats Bridgehead is recon. The only thing that beats Bridgehead is recon, because even when Bridgehead comes in, you're less likely to generate the sustained hits because you don't have full rolls to hit now. There's less sustained hits, there's less volume. And yeah, Plasma is absolutely going to be Plasma AP -3, right? But remember that you're on a 3-up save. You're on a 3-up save with Armor of Contempt with recon, essentially, because you go from a 5-up save to having the benefit of cover, which is a 4-up. You go from a 5-up save to +1 to your save from the second part of recon, and then +1 to your save because of take cover, and then so that gets you up to a 3-up save, and then essentially you're a 3-up save plus benefit of cover. So benefit of cover negates the first pip of AP. So Plasma becomes AP -2. So now you're on a 5-up save against Plasma, and you're pretty much, because of the big Katachan suicide screen, you're pretty much looking at your entire army being -1 to hit on a 5-up save. So the Scions are hitting you on 4s. Yeah, they're going to wound the piss out of you. They're only hitting on 4s, and then you're going to be on a 5-up save. So I think that the current way of running Bridgehead gets countered by recon detachment. Now, here's where things start getting interesting. Here's where we go another layer deep, boys. Does that mean Bridgehead changes? I think absolutely. I think that means that that forces a change for Bridgehead to go more mechanized, because they're going to want more Taurox primes so they can get the full rerolls to hit, so they can then start clearing the Bridgehead. And suddenly, because it's more mechanized, because it's less drop, nuke, blast, ass, it starts balancing out the rest of the meta. I think recon will counter. So in summary, I think recon will counter Bridgehead. I think as a result, we'll see I think recon will be a relatively popular detachment. As a result, I think we will see Bridgehead start becoming more of a 4-on-1, and recon will beat Bridgehead. So Bridgehead will adapt, which means that then Bridgehead won't be quite as spicy as it was. That's what but all that entire hypothesis, and I admit there's a huge hole in my hypothesis and my theory, that all predicates on recon becoming popular. I think that it all predicates on that. Recon does not step up. I don't think Bridgehead changes. I think Bridgehead continues to... doesn't change significantly enough to have the ripple effect the rest of the meta. So it's basically... the meta cries out to the pure infantry guard players, save us! And it is up to us. Infantry Corps! Day in the core, a day on the farm, every meal a banquet, every paycheck a fortune, every meta a parade. I love the core. It's up to us. Save the meta. Save the dream. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.